All right, so we are going to keep pushing along with our local adjustments, and we're going to talk about the radial filter. Now, I think that you're probably going to get the point after the linear gradient filter, but I'm also going to just kind of start at the very beginning with this photo. So this is a photo right out of my camera. No edits have been done. It's of a picture of my wife and a kitten. She's standing in the shade with like full sun in the background. We can tell that too she's too underexposed. The background is too overexposed. So first thing I'm doing is I'm just going to crop it using the original aspect ratio, and I've already cropped this before, so it kind of popped up automatically. Going to crop it. I'm going to go and do, really quick, I'm going to do kind of all of my global edits that you all know about, right? If I go and try to edit the background to come out a little better, then she gets even darker. Bring the highlights down. Bring the shadows up. It's looking a little better, but still, I know that we're going to be able to do better with local adjustments. I'm going to take the clarity by default, bump it up to 20. You guys know all this stuff. I would sharpen it, I'd saturate, illuminate, all that stuff. So we're going to just call that good for now, and we're going to dive into how we're going to use the local adjustment tool, the radial filter, to improve this image. So this is a really useful tool, just like the linear gradient tool, for one specific thing, round things, especially faces, right? So let me grab this tool. I'm going to just click the mask button. I'm going to go to radial gradient, and I can click and I can drag and move it wherever I want, right? That would be a really easy way to, select a face, a round thing in a photo, something like that, right? That's pretty useful. Now, I want to be honest with you, right? That's a useful tool. It did a really good job of, making a circular selection of somebody's face, for sure. But let me just delete this really quick. Delete all masks. Because remember, you also could just go grab this tool, grab the brush, and essentially we have the same thing, right? So I just want to be honest, that is, it's useful, but it's maybe not, maybe not as necessary as the brush tool, right? The brush tool is kind of what I always kind of lean on to make a lot of these changes, but I just want you to know the radial. So let's grab it. Let's rotate it. So we can click and drag. Same thing, the outer line and the inner line are the amount of feather. So I'm just going to rotate this, something like that. That looks pretty good to me. I don't want it to go outside of her head, because then what's going to happen is, as I make the change, she's going to be like haloed, right? Now, I think my wife is an angel, but I'm going to try to not give her a halo in this photo. So that looks good to me right there. I'm going to unclick the show mask, and then I am going to bump the exposure up, and you will see that really easily I can change the exposure. If I want to go and change that, right? So if I did that, let's just say I made that edit, I see that her face is like, it's well exposed in the middle, but then it gets darker, so I could just drag it over a little bit more, something like that. And that's often how I use this tool. I use the show overlay, right, to kind of show me what I'm selecting, but then as I make the change, I'll go and kind of tweak the mask to get exactly what I want. Something like that. Now that looks pretty good to me. It kind of looks maybe a little bit too far, so I'm going to bring it back a little bit. It looks like her face is kind of glowing a little bit. But if I hit the before and after button, right, so there's where this photo started. Here's where we are right now. That's pretty good. But now we have her body still kind of dark. So we could change that. So now I'm going to start kind of talking to you about how to use multiple of these tools together. So we use the radial gradient to select her face. And we can go up to the mask window here, and I'm just going to hit add or subtract. I want to add to this mask, and you get to pick what you want to add to it with. And I'm going to just go and hit the brush tool. Now you can pick any of these, right? But I'm just going to grab the brush tool because I think I've already told you, right? The brush is kind of my default. And I'm just going to click and I'm going to start painting. So now, in addition to that radial mask, I now have this brush selection as well. So if I go up here and I look in my mask window, I now have a more holistic mask of my wife in her entirety there. So let me unclick this, and we see that the edit has been applied to her arms and her torso, and the cat as well as her face, right? So that's how you can use these tools together, right? You could grab the linear tool. Let's actually do that really quick. Let's go create a new mask. We're going to go linear gradient. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. I'm going to select this. I want the sky to be what is edited. And this is actually a good demonstration of like what happens when you don't have like a perfect horizon, right? Where it's just this flat horizon. Because, right, we have the horizon up here, but then we also have my wife's head in it. Now, I wouldn't want to just go and take the exposure of the horizon down because it's also changing, you know, the exposure of my wife's head that's also popping into the horizon. So what we would do from there is we have this nice horizon selected up here to darken the sky, but now we want to subtract from it, and I'm going to subtract with either the radial gradient or the brush. I'm going to use the brush. Now make sure that your icon has a little circle, and I am going to unselect her head. So now we have this nice mask of this gradient. Oops, sorry, I don't know what I just did here. Oh, there we go. Now we have this nice mask of the gradient sky, but her head is removed. So now I could take the exposure of... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong mask. I see what I'm doing here. I'm sorry. I have the wrong mask selected. So definitely make sure that whatever the white box is around, that's the mask that's selected. Not a big deal, but just, you know, it's easy to be on the wrong mask. So make sure you're on the right mask. And now I'm going to change the exposure of the sky without changing the exposure of her head that breaks the horizon. We can see up here in her head a little bit is still getting selected, so I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm going to subtract some of her hair up here, just something like, and that's a really quick way of doing this. Oops, you see that I went over there, right? So I could also go and hit add by holding down option, so that's just switching your brush around, and I could add that back in. So that's a way that you can use these tools in unison from each other, right? So you can use them all together. You know, to be honest, I do probably 90% of my masking in Lightroom if I'm going to do it with the brush tool or some of the new ones, but it is good to kind of learn how to use all these because sometimes the radial filter or the gradient, the linear gradient is really useful. So definitely know how to use them, but make sure you're an expert with the brush. Okay, I hope you found that useful. That is how you use the radial gradient and the and multiple mask tools together.